we're going to get started. Now, I'm such a goofball. I noticed that up here in this corner of the book it says secret password for exclusive web page and downloads inside. I wonder what kind of downloads. Could we use them in the book? I wonder if there's anything good in there. Like, I wonder if that's even still available. I don't know. I might actually have to look. So the first spread is going to be on the inside of the cover. So the first thing that I am going to do is gesso the whole thing. I think. I kind of like this ready to rock little space right here. So that might get to stay. It might. I might gesso around it so that I can, you know, cover up all the rest of this stuff. But that's kind of fun, right? It's kind of fun. Let me think a little bit, but I'm going to get the gesso out and get started. And then I'll let you know if I come up with any brilliant ideas. Alrighty, since I don't actually have scratch paper big enough to put in behind these pages, I just grabbed a few sheets of computer paper, which I'll try to keep and use over and over and over and over again. Okay, I forgot to hit record, so I've been sitting here talking to myself as I applied my second coat of gesso, which is still not 100% covered up. Like, you can see Hannah right there, and you can see some words and stuff, but this is good enough because I am going to apply paint over all of this. So yeah, if I was going to cover the whole thing with like collage paper, I'd probably do one coat, because the papers would cover a lot. Even tissue papers would cover a lot if they're printed or colored or something. But for this, I wanted to do 2 coats. My first coat wasn't quite dry, so my second coat kind of started to pick it up a little, and you can see where it's a little model-y looking, but it's a good enough coverage. I don't need it to be perfect and solid. I was saying, when you couldn't hear me, that I do recommend gesso because these pages are slick. And I don't know if the paint's going to stick. I haven't tested it or tried it. I might do that before the next page, but I would say don't just go in with some white paint, because I don't know if it'll stick. Test it first, see if it will. If that's the route you go, you don't have gesso but you have a big bottle of white paint or something. Another thing you could do is take a little sandpaper to the pages and rough them up a little, and that'll help the paint stick if that's what you decide to go with. So yeah, I'm going to need another bottle of gesso before this project is over, and I might even break into my black gesso and do a black background page. That could be fun. So we'll see what happens, but right now what I'm going to do is get these pages good and dry before I move on. So back to the heat gun, and I'll be back in a little bit. Well, it'll only be a second for you. Okay, so I've let the gesso dry, And as it dried, it got more translucent. So I'm going to go in a little bit more, move that was noisy, and do just a little more gesso. And this might be the fault of the fact that I have basics gesso, which is the student grade quality of gesso from Liquitex. I might actually, let me wet my brush real quick. I might actually need to stop in and purchase some better quality gesso, or at least some more opaque, heavier coverage gesso from Michael's or something, or my art store next week before I go much further. Or maybe I just need to apply it heavier. I don't know, it just seems like it's taking a lot to cover, and I didn't anticipate this to be much of a problem, so yeah, I'm probably going to go ahead and pick up some better quality gesso. I'm only going over on this page some of the areas that I can see through, because the color of the purple doesn't bother me, as I plan on doing this page in pink and purple, just because it kind of goes with the background that's still showing. I just want to get rid of the more obvious things that are showing through on this page. Okay. Now that seems a lot better to me already. Okay, so I'm going to give this a blast with the heat gun, and then I'll come back and we'll start adding some color to it. Okay, so this is not dry completely at all. I won't lie to you. I just ran out of patience. So, in regards to the fact that I'm pulling out some colors, I'm going to do some really, my paints are golden fluid paint acrylics, and I have Quin Crimson, oops, that's the wrong one. That's not what I want. Quin Magenta. Quin Magenta and some Dioxazine Purple, both of which are dark, so I'm going to mix white. And my white happens to be, oh, I have some white back there. It happens to be Americana. I have some golden, but it's behind me. I'm going to mix these with the white simply because they're dark and I want the colors to be a little lighter than just straight. So I'm going to squirt some white paint all over, and I'm going to start with the purple because it's already purple over here. So I will start with the purple over here and let it blend into pink on this page. Just a few drops. And I'm going to use my, hold on, let me rinse. Gesso doesn't like to come out of the brush, especially in really dirty water. Okay, so I'm going to use my wet brush to do this with, and if it's too dry then I'll add more water to it. But I'm just drying the metal and the handle so it doesn't slip out of my hand. I'm just basically mixing the colors on the page, and I will go all the way around. I'm not going for a perfect blend of colors. I don't mind that there's streaks. I actually kind of like that. I think that's kind of cool. And again, still not going around these letters perfectly. Not my intention to do so in the first place, so not going to start now. A little more white. If you can hear raindrops outside, I apologize. It is crazy weather for where I live, and it is pouring down rain today. It was supposed to actually hail, quarter-size hail, and a possibility of a small tornado. I live in Central California. Those things aren't supposed to happen here. Okay, I'm getting just a little more water on my brush so the colors will blend. I want to pick up a touch of pink. Start it in over here. Okay, sorry about that interruption. I'll get back to work now. As you can see, my paint is starting to pick up a little of the gesso because it wasn't fully dry. So if you don't want that to happen on your page, let your gesso dry completely. That's the only thing I can tell you that's going to make that any better, because mine's getting a little chunky. And again, it's not really bothering me at this point because I really want this to be just kind of messy. I just want this to be, you know, kind of messy anyway, so I'm actually kind of liking that texture that's happening from the gesso pulling up. But if you don't want that, please make sure that you dry your gesso thoroughly, because when you put wet acrylic on top of not completely dry, so like wet acrylic, it will lift. It will grab a hold of it and lift it and try to mix it together. So make sure that if you don't want any of this happening on your page, that you allow your gesso to dry completely. I know that I want a border around this, which is going to be mildly, like I probably should have left this purple, mildly problematic on this side, just because the lettering comes here, so I'm not 100% sure how I plan to work around that. I'm thinking black, because I'm going to do a lot of other things in black on this page. I am like loving this crazy texture that happened over here because of the gesso underneath not being completely dry. So that's kind of my little happy accident right there. So what I'm going to do is mix my carbon black. You can't see it because there's always like paint everywhere. I don't know why I get black everywhere when I open it and do whatever. But carbon black with a little water, so it'll be just a little bit thinner, and I'm going to make a border. Okay, so I came up with an idea. I think I want to do like black border, kind of just wavy lines, and let it kind of drip a little, maybe more down the side. And then here, I plan on adding the words, this journal. So that the Ready to Rock that I left here is going to start. So Ready to Rock, this journal is what I'm adding here. So maybe this will be just a little drippy, and then this journal, and then more drips off of that. That's what I'm thinking. So I need to draw out the words. They're not going to look like this, because that's not how I tend to draw my lettering, but I'm going to try and keep it a little bubbly and loopy, and this is sticking, so that I can make drips coming down off of it. Honestly, I don't think I'm going to allow the paint to drip. I'm going to paint drips because I want them very specific. Okay. This is not going to be any fun to paint. I hate staying in the lines. So I'm probably going to use a brush that's entirely too small for the job, simply so that I don't have to work so hard at trying to keep myself within the lines that I drew. So bear with me. Okay, now that this is dried a little, I'm going to come back in and just draw some drips, because that's what I want to do. Okay, next I'm going to do the border. Again, I don't know if this tape is really necessary anymore, but I don't want to take it off until I'm certain that I'm not going to completely mess up the edge of my book. So I'm trying to think how I want the edge of this to go. I think just in a little bit of just a simple curvy line. That is all. Oopsie. Okay, so I'm going to turn the book. I'm thinking it looks, does it look crickety? It's a little crickety because it starts so much more shallow over here. So I went a little crickety. Let's bring the edge down where I can so that it'll look a little more straight-ish across. And then going to turn the book back around. Let's lift the taped part this time and see if that makes it a little easier. Excuse my squeaky chair. I will try and get that fixed before the next video. Going to go back in with my smaller brush, which is in my water, excuse my splashing, so that I can do some smaller drips coming from up here. Oh! Does anybody else see what I did? Oh no. That is going to require a little bit of repair, I think. I don't think I'm going to get all of that off. That's okay. I can work with this. This is not the end of the world. That could be the end of the world. I have black paint everywhere. I don't know what happened. It's all over me. That is in there. Usually you can wipe acrylic off acrylic, but it's not happening. I'll put something there, or I'll fix it. It'll be okay. So, note to you guys, be very careful with your drippy black paint that's very thin. Right here is going to be a real test of whether or not this glossy book can handle acrylic paint, or if the acrylic paint can stick to the glossy book. Because on this edge, this is straight book. There's no gesso or paint already on there. No gesso under that to paint, basically. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry and then I'll get back to work. Okay, so I have an idea. It's either going to turn out really cool or it's going to fail miserably and look terrible. At that point, who knows what I'll have to do. Either start over or change everything. I'm not 100% sure, but my idea is to bring the black paint all the way around this Ready to Rock and have it look like it's dripping down into the letters. So let's see if I can accomplish that. We'll see. This may fail horribly and I may be very sad, but we'll see what happens. A lot of my ideas work out, so I'm willing to give it a try. And I know I'm not following the line over here, but I'm just not loving the fact that I left this part open. I mean, as a part of this lettering, it just doesn't seem to work for me. This might work. This might not be terrible. I'm kind of liking it. Is that creepy that I'm kind of liking it? I don't know why I feel all Halloween-y on this page, but that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting from it. What do you think? I kind of like it. So now I'm thinking that all I really see is rock this journal. And I do intend to outline some of these letters, maybe highlight them at least, make some highlights. But I'm thinking Ready To needs to, excuse my water slushing of my brush. I'm thinking maybe we should make Ready To black. So I'm going to hit this with the heat gun and dry it before I move on, and then I'll come back. Alright, so I've turned it upside down again just so I can get to the side that I want to without sticking my arm all the way across the paint. And since I'm following something else, in my mind I don't need to be able to read it to copy it. So I'm going to use my super fine Sharpie and see if I can just color in these letters. This is going to take a minute, so I'm pretty sure this is going to go ahead and hit fast forward. Yeah. Okay. Alright, so that was extremely labor intensive to do with a Sharpie. If I thought I could do a decent job of it with a brush, I would have, and I kind of did a bad job anyways. That was painful. I'm going to pay for that for the rest of the night. I have carpal tunnel, and I think I'm going to have surgery. So, if you have carpal tunnel, don't do that. Oh my. Yeah, that wasn't much fun after all. just to be clear. Now, I like the way it looks, and I like that the white is gone. Excuse my squeaky chair. And I like the way the drips look. I think this is fun. This page is going completely different than I had originally intended, but I'm okay with that. I just, you know, sometimes if you get an idea, you just have to go with it. So that's what I did. I decided I wanted to go with drippy drippies. I still like the stars, and I still like other things, but I'm not 100% sure what now this is going to have dripped over. Okay. I think I'm going to go ahead with my original plan, which was to put stars on this page. And I don't think the drips necessarily have to ruin that idea. So I'm going to draw them on with a pencil because I want to go over them with my black portfolio. This is not the box they came in, obviously. Water-soluble oil pastels. So I'm going to use the black one of that. If you don't have these, you can use crayons. It'll be just fine. So, random places going to stick these stars. Okay, as you can tell, precision is not something I'm going for. Doesn't much matter to me if these are very precise. Let me get a little bit of water on my baby wipe. I'm just wanting to get this off of my hand. I got it on the page so that the water, so that I don't accidentally smudge black where I don't want it. Now, these are very creamy crayons or pastels, so they get all over your hand when you hold them, and I didn't want to spread it. And they are water soluble, so you can do this with water, but I like to smudge them with my fingers. I didn't mark on the ones on the bottom yet because I don't want to accidentally stick my hand into it. So really all I'm going to do now is smudge them all the way around just to make some smudgy stars. Okay, going to try and clean some of this off my hand again. And I'm liking it. Now, I am going to go ahead and leave this how it is. This does need sprayed with fixative. Excuse my noise. This does need sprayed with a fixative of some sort. You can use workable fixative and then go in on top of it if you want to work on top of it. I'm just going to try and be very careful with what I do from here on out to not disturb these. I am, however, going to apply some heat because I like the way they melt. So if you don't have the oil pastels that make the smudgies, a really cool thing you can do is to just use a black wax crayon, like a children's crayon, and draw your stars. And then take a hairdryer or a heat gun, if you have one would be better, to them. And I'm going to try and zoom in onto one of them and show you how it reacts when you heat it. You can just kind of see the wax that you've laid down melt, and then it brings up this really cool sheen. So let me just show you that real quick. I'm hoping you saw that happen. It did happen. I'm hoping you can see that on my camera. I'm going to try it zoomed out a little further on a couple more. So watch closely. Okay, I am just really hoping at this point that you can see this happening. So if not, I apologize. There's not much I can do to make it better than it is. Let's finish zooming out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply the heat to all of these, and then I will be right back. If this did not show up on your camera, try this on a piece of scrap paper with a crayon or the oil pastel so that you can see the effect that happens. It should almost look like it melts and shines. So that's the look that you're going for, is a little bit of shine. So I'll heat these all up and get them done, and I'll be right back. Now I have heated all of these, and they're still wet. They'll come right off. I mean right off if you touch them while they're still warm. And even afterwards, I mean, they really need to cool before they'll stop coming right up. But if you touch the ones that are warm, they'll come off like wet paint. So be careful with them if you keep going on a page that's not completely dry, which I tend to do. Just move on, and that's what I'm going to do next. The last thing I want to do on this, well, not the last thing, but the last element I want to add to this page before I do some detail type things is some star confetti that I have. Excuse my throat clearing. I just have these simple small star confetti, and I purchased these at Michael's in the party section, so you should be able to find some sort of a confetti. If not, you can always just use glitter. It's really doesn't matter. You can leave them off completely. I'm using matte medium here that I have just squeezed into a container so that I don't have to keep squeezing it out into a dish like I usually do, because I tend to dip brushes in it all the time, and if you don't use all of it that you put into a dish, then it all goes to waste, and that really bothers me. So I'm looking for the right glue brush. I know I have another smaller one. Ugh. I wonder what I've done with it. Oh, it's sitting out already. It's just not purple anymore. All the paint's come off the handle. I buy really inexpensive, well, they're like $5 for the set of 3 brushes, because the glue tends to get further and further up the bristles until the bristles don't bend anymore, and I have one like that. This one, like, only the tip of the bristles bends. Like, the rest of it just won't anymore. So, I buy these so that I can stick them in glues or mediums that I know might harden on my brushes, so that I don't have to care if they get ruined. Another thing you can buy pretty inexpensive at the craft stores are these really inexpensive, terrible brushes. They're meant to be used for like glues and things. The bristles tend to come out, which drives me crazy. That's why I don't use them very much. But I do have them. They're just really cheap. I mean, they don't even have a handle. It's just more of the metal that holds this together as the handle. If I plan on doing a lot of gluing, like a couple of hours of like serious collage or something, I'll use these and then just throw it away. Okay. So now all I'm really going to do is just in a few random places around the page, I'm going to spread some matte medium and stick down some stars. And you can move them around with the brush a little, that works. Your finger, a stick, whatever works for you. I kind of want them to look as random as possible, so I'm going to try sprinkling them. And then just make sure that you put some of the either decoupage glue, matte medium, whatever it is that you're using for your collage elements. Just make sure you get some on top too, so that it doesn't, oh look, I just stuck my brush into the stars instead of the matte medium. Just to stick them down, that's all. Just make sure you get a coat under them and a coat on top of them. Okay, so now I've added my stars. I'm going to hit this with the heat gun again. Remember that every time you hit this with any kind of heat, it is going to remelt those oil pastels or crayons if that's what you used. So just be prepared that that's going to happen. Make sure you don't touch any of your black stars so that they don't get smudged everywhere. I'll be right back. Okay, so yeah, I started doing the highlights on my drips and I totally forgot to hit the record button. So I'm going to show you what I'm doing. Let me zoom in. I want to zoom in kind of a lot so you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully you're watching this on something larger than an iPhone. So basically I just have my favorite white gel pen. In this case it is the Pentel Sunburst in medium. And I'm just trying to be cautious because some of these stars are still warm, and applying the highlights to the drips. And you just need to make sure that your highlights all stay on the same side of the drips. You don't want to do some on the left side, some on the right side. It's going to look a little odd if you do that. So basically I'm working across the page, adding these highlights to different spots on the drips, always on the bottom, random spots all the way up the top. So I'm going to zoom back out and finish that probably in fast forward because you'll get bored to death watching me. Okay, so I have finished the drips and now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of highlighting to the letters that say this journal just to kind of bring them out a little bit more. Again, I'm trying to be a little cautious just because my matte medium isn't completely dry and I don't want to knock all these stars off. Okay, so I finished adding the highlights to the letters that say this journal. I didn't follow any specific pattern on these. I just went ahead and did it so that they would stand out a little better. So there's a close-up of those. And then the last thing I'm going to do on this page, and I'm going to stay zoomed in just for a moment so you can see me do the first three and then I'll do the rest of them regular. But what I'm using, it's by Folk Art brand, and I'm sorry the label's super sparkly, but that's the way it comes. It is called Extreme Glitter Acrylic Paint. It goes on white with glitter and it is extreme. I'm sorry, I broke my cap. They're not kidding. There's a lot of glitter. And so it's going to be super, super sparkly. Looking for a palette paper because for some reason I did not have one out. I'm ready for this. Okay, so I just squeezed out way more paint than I needed, but what I'm going to do is I'm using a number 2 round for this. It doesn't really matter what brush you use. And I'm just outlining the stars with the glitter. And again, when this dries, it will be clear, so it'll still be black, and it will be very, very sparkly. You do want to kind of work quickly on this because I'm not 100% sure that the oil pastels are not still reactive. So don't go back and forth over this. Just lay some down. This is going to dry clear. It doesn't matter really how you put it on. So just, you know, try to quickly get some decent coverage on each line or of the star and call it good enough. So I'll zoom back out and do the rest and fast forward. Okay, Now, if only there was a way to get all this excess paint back into that bottle. I might try, just because I'm like that. I did squeeze out way too much on accident. Okay, so I am done. So because I am done, I'm going to go ahead and rip this tape off because it's driving me crazy. Excuse me, clearing my throat. There we go. Now I have a nice clean edge. Lots of noise, sorry. And I'm done. I'm not doing anything else with this page other than protecting it. So I will dry this and then I'll come back in a minute and show you close up what the stars look like dry, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about what I'm going to apply on top of the finished page to help protect it. Okay, so again, coming across the problem with, as I try to heat dry the glitter paint, I am reactivating the wax in those oil pastels, so I couldn't do this as dry as I wanted. I'm trying to find a couple that look like they're pretty dry. I'm going to zoom in really good so you can see the sparkle on those stars. Isn't that just a lot of fun? And any of the white that you see showing up still is going to dry. And I know that you can see a little bit of the reflection where the matte medium is here, where it's not next to it, it's a little more matte. That's all going to be fine because I'm putting a coat of varnish over the top of this, so that's not going to matter. Let me zoom back out now and you can see the completed page again. Now, what I will be doing is taking this out to my garage because workable fixative is toxic. So I will be spraying this entire thing with workable fixative. Not really necessary over the entire thing, but because of these stars being water soluble and the fact that they do, you know, react to any liquids or brushing, I don't want to paint my varnish on top. So what I'll be doing is taking this out, give it a good coat of workable fixative. I will let that dry thoroughly. Then I will be applying at least one coat of matte varnish to try and keep the pages from sticking. I will probably do two, because across the top here where I did the straight black paint, this is going to want to stick to this when I close the page. It's just the way it is. So I am going to probably apply two coats. I probably still will not follow the exact instructions that says to wait hours and hours in between, but I will be applying a couple of coats of this and hope for the best. Another technique that I have been told about, I have not tried, is baby powder on a big fluffy brush and just brush it across the page and then dust it off. I don't know if that will show up on all the black paint or not because I've not yet tried it. I happen to be a touchy-feely person, so I'm afraid that putting the baby powder between my journal pages is not going to help, because when I go back and look at my journal pages, I tend to touch. So that's why I want to find something that I can put on top. Matte varnish seems to be working pretty well. It's very thin. It doesn't seem to affect anything that I've put on the page. It dries perfectly clear, and it seems to be working pretty well in the journals that I have used it in. So I hope that you have enjoyed this page, making it with me. Again, you can follow along and do the same techniques that I'm doing. You can do your own thing, but again, this is going to be a fun project for us to work on together, and I will see you guys on the next page. Bye now.